check, check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear us loud and clear? What's going on, Coach Paul?
I can hear you loud and clear, Coach Jay, but I can't see you.
All right, I'll send that over to you in a second. But welcome, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to At the Buzzer. If this is your first time here, goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. May talk about some markets that we have not traded before, but we believe our goal as traders is to identify opportunity, see how we could have taken advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. Well, second, I'll get those screens over to you. If this is our first time meeting, I'm Coach Jay. I've been a Topstep performance coach since June of 2023. Been trading for the past 13 years and in the futures markets for the past 6, and that is Coach Paul. Coach Paul, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Coach Paul. I've been with Topstep for 2 years. I've been involved in the futures trading industry for 4 decades. I'm here to share some experience, perhaps some wisdom, and help you become a better trader.
Awesome stuff. Thank you for that, Coach. Everybody okay at the end of this week of insane volatility that we had? Let us know in the chat how you guys' week ended up. Were you up on the week, down on the week? Anything that you learned from this week of extreme volatility? It was a wild one for sure, but it is Friday. Crazy, Coach. Tuesday felt like Thursday, but this Friday it felt like the week went quick. I don't understand. I think the markets kind of spun us all around, but we made it.
Well, I know Coach Hoop said, I need a nap. And being a Friday afternoon, yeah, in a pretty historic week,
Yep.
volatility-wise, have to repeat how crazy it was. Maybe still is. Today felt like finally a regular day, but I saw a headline that this was the biggest percentage gain on a weekly basis since 2020.
Wow.
I don't know if we should just jump into the charts. You want to go to the percentage winners?
Let's look at the percentage winners. As far as the news goes, we know we had PPI come in a little bit cooler than expected. At this point, these planned numbers are not really doing much as far as moving the markets too much. So why don't we just get right into the percentage movers? Today to the downside, we had the 30-year bonds down 0.63%. Actually, hold on. Let me rephrase that. We had the 5-year down 0.51%, the 30-year down 0.63%, and the 10-year down 0.75%. For our biggest percentage mover to the upside, to the downside. To the upside, we had silver up 4.47%, copper up 5%, and micro Bitcoin futures up 5.43% for our biggest percentage mover to the upside. Talk about our big four. We had crude oil up 2.48%, the S&P up 1.83%. Gold made new all-time highs today. Pushed around my stream deck, so I don't have the sound effects. But gold made new all-time highs, up 2.39%, and the NASDAQ up 1.82% to round out our big four. I'm looking at a NASDAQ weekly chart here, Coach. It's Friday, we're ending the week. What are we looking at here?
Large range. Interesting. It hit the 200 weekly moving average. Bounced off hard. It's funny that low was made on Monday, but possible spike low. Let's keep an eye on the weekly high, which seems far off, doesn't it? But in the NASDAQ terms, in this volatility, it could be an hour away.
Yeah, seriously.
But it looks a little extended. This is the first buying week we've had, in 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 weeks, 7 weeks.
Yeah, I think this week here was rollover where it did end. Week did end higher than it opened. But can we really even count that? We got directional again.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first buying week since the sell-off started. Would this be the
look
bottom?
at the volume. Big, largest volume.
Yep.
So definitely short covering. Yeah, absolutely. Longer term buyers, it's hard to say, but technically that's It's kind of friendly.
On that weekly, coach, we hit that 200 moving average. That is not something that happens often. The last time we were under that, of course, was 2022. But I'm looking at a trading view chart, and the last time we hit it, so 2022, and then COVID lows, we bounced right off that 200 moving average on the weekly, and then continued to rally to make all time highs. Uh, in the Nasdaq this week, we traded under that 200 moving average, and we are back above it securely. And is that the end of the sell-off? We will see next week if these buyers were really convinced. We do know the president said sometime this week that this is a great time to buy, uh, and we're rallying. So why don't we look at a shorter time frame? Looking at a daily, coach. What are we looking at here? Wow, that low was made on Monday.
Yeah, it was early.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, that. Then we went right to the 20. We still haven't cleared that. We didn't test that today, but look at that wick on the bottom. Starting to seem friendly to me, but it's got to settle above the 20-day moving average before I would consider. We're still under a 200-day moving average. But one thing, if you're new, witnessed, and it's an old saying, is bear market rallies are vicious. We saw plenty of those this week.
Yep.
Doesn't give you time to hesitate. But look at, Wednesday's candle, you called it halfway back. Oh, today was halfway back.
Right to that halfway. Even more, exact than yesterday's was 18,076. We'll call that halfway back. The low of the session today was 18,067. So in this crazy Nasdaq, where we've seen 1,000 point ranges, that measurement somehow still works. And when did that happen? Last night on. Look at this volume last night, coach.
Yeah.
Close above it, and what happens?
Wow, that was last night. Oh yeah, it was that big of volume. Oh, that's why, because the Swiss franc and the currencies exploded, and gold had a nice rally. Yeah, that was. I thought that was 3 days ago. That was just last night.
That was last night. We got to
Wow,
close.
look at that. That was. I would have thought that was a close. That was bigger volume than the close.
Well, no, I zoomed in. I
Oh,
zoomed in
okay.
just so we could see relative
Oh,
to anything trading around it.
oh, J trade
But yeah, right.
at night. That all right.
We didn't trade back into that range the rest of the session. We kind of just rallied from there. Right off that 50%. Again, these are technical patterns that we see day in and day out. I think we continue to rally here. At this point, I'm looking for us to trade back up to the high of Wednesday's range. Right, we clearly showing that 50% of this is going to hold as a support. That level where we had that high volume when we had the 90-day delay announcement. 90-day delay announcement was right here. Since we've made that announcement, the market has not traded back into those prices. So, well, not for very long, at least. Holding as a support. I think we at least go test the upper end of this imbalance, and then maybe just make the run to all-time highs. Design, it says, is this all a mental game?
Yeah, it is.
It is. Welcome to the game. Coach
What
Robert
do
in the
I mean?
chat.
But it's a
Happy
great
Friday. Go ahead, Coach.
It is a mental game because you have to have emotional stability in your decisions. If you got torn apart this week, learn from that. And thank God it's a combine or an XFA. It's prop money, not your own. Learn from it. Understand what volatility means. You need to pare down, or you don't have to trade, or you can choose another market. Corn was a great market this week,
Oh yeah.
by the way. Yeah, on the weekly, it's probably one of the biggest gainers. Anyway, understand that it's these are the weeks you need to learn to become a good trader over time.
Mm. Oh wow, look at that corn move on the daily. That's a that's a big
Oh,
move, coach.
oh yeah, look at that double bottom. I forgot to put that on the scouting report earlier because I was so busy.
Too many things to scout.
These are good times for options longs. You know, don't have to watch them.
I did. I kind of maybe tongue in cheek here said back to all time highs. Uh,
Hmm?
but we know that these equity markets are meant to go up. Did trade below that 20%. That bounce off the weekly 200 moving average is significant, right? Because it held it to the tick, right? 2022, and I'm just going from technicals. 2022, we kind of got down there, built a base around it, and hung out for almost 6 months around that 200 moving average. Uh, the test of the 200 moving average on the weekly, and if you pull up a trading view chart, you'll see it on the NASDAQ. The test of the 200 moving average looks a lot like the test during COVID, where it hits it to the tick and then it doesn't revisit those prices again. So does this rally to all-time highs? I think we definitely have some time before that happens. But if we're continuing to delay tariffs, and now to me a delay feels like if you keep delaying something, coach, is it ever going to happen?
I don't know. It depends on the player.
Right.
It seems to me the gig is done, and it's a matter of how we're going to deal from here.
Yeah.
Um, Part of a poker game of bluff. Is he bluffing? I don't, all we can control is our controllables, and that's how we enter and exit.
Yep.
And um, it seems the way this market's slowed down, something might come out this weekend.
Mm.
Big players really don't want to take any size over a weekend when some news event can come out. So Monday, I think Monday is going to tell the tale.
Yeah. Should be interesting for sure. We'll probably hear some news,
Wow.
I'm sure, that sometime this weekend. Uh, Looking at the S&P, let's just go to the S&Ps for the day trade today. We saw the bounce uh, off of that 50% of the range in the NASDAQ. The New York session was very range bound, right, for a long time. It really felt like the markets uh, didn't want to pick a direction. Maybe it's Friday and it was chopping up all the premiums from zero DTEs. But we really didn't pick a direction until midway through the day. So the one thing I want to point out here is because we are day traders, right? We're talking about the markets. I mentioned the markets may rally to all-time highs, but the way we have to make decisions at Topstep is, what is it giving me today, right? We could make all-time highs, but how do we get there, and how do we trade it intraday? So if we look at and the only reason I'm bringing this up is because this VWAP was pretty flat. If we look at regular trading hours, VWAP never left the 30-minute range uh, at all, right? Pretty much a flat line. Flat VWAP tells us range bound market. So, if you were looking for breakouts or some of the crazy trending days that we've seen this week, uh, this VWAP never got going in any direction. I think even if we look at a smaller time frame, uh, looking at a 3-minute opening range, it barely left that 3-minute opening range, right, until late in the day. So, uh, when you're going, when you're identifying the personality for the day, I think to me this is the quickest way I've found to do it. Find that opening range, see if VWAP ever leaves it, and if it doesn't, that kind of dictates how you can see the day. Um, Also, the likelihood of staying in this range for the entire session is pretty low, right? We're talking about this opening range being 40 points in the S&Ps. The likelihood that we have a 40-point range day in the S&P, coach, is pretty low. So usually when I see this, if I'm looking for a trend, I'm waiting for the market to start to break decisively in any direction, and then that's probably the move for the rest of the day. Uh, but this was a tricky one if you were looking for breakouts this morning.
It was tough because it shows that, being two things we had was Friday. The volatility we've been running under reminds me of Jackie Stewart, if you race car driver, used to be announced. I used to yell, I don't know how much longer they'll be able to keep up at this pace. I look, I follow it. Unless the VWAP every day, the calculation and the daily range, those ranges we had are just, I don't think they're sustainable.
No, they're not.
And I think that this morning's action kind of reflected that the volume was down. We got range bound, and finally it was the natural float. Maybe we're back to normal off that weekly range. Interesting, we hit that 200. It's also the largest range we've had since the last time we touched that. Put it this, but the delta to the downside is subsiding. So volatility, to me,
The aggressive selling has stopped.
Aggressive selling has stopped. I sold out of the money put spreads. What does that mean is I don't really know if it's going to go up, but volatility can't continue. Well, I guess it can. I should never say that. But it's going to be a high probability that volatility is not going to continue like this. And that should be reflected in the average true ranges. So start watching that next week. I use that to position size. See how the relative volatility is, and trade my size accordingly.
With that being said, range bound markets, this is all relative, right? This high to low range in the NASDAQ in that first hour was still 370 points.
Yeah.
6 months ago, 370 points was the range for the entire day. So range bound, but presenting great opportunities still. Still very risky also, right? Because 370 point range, there's a lot of points in there if you're still trading minis. So Chauncey asked, are we going back to normal? It's hard to say that when 4 out of 5 days this week have been completely insane, and then we have one day where the market relaxes. I need to see a couple more of these before I let my guard down and think that we're going back to normal. Right. So go over to gold, coach. Go out to a daily on gold.
Well, we talked about this yesterday. Gold, Swiss franc, euro, Japanese yen, that play is still in force. What was it, up $100 at one time?
Today we were up about $67.
All right. But look at this week. Just the range this week. Let's look at the weekly. Yeah.
Almost 300 almost $300. $300 range for the week in gold. And that's
$30,000 range on a regular. I bought a micro last night. We could look at the half hour. It broke out of that range the first half an hour with urgency. Never looked back. And I was shocked at how on a micro, on swinging $100, I'm just stunned. I mean, it's not that micro is where is a great contract to trade. And it acts better to me than the equities right now. But look at that, all of that. The gold was, that was almost textbook. It was textbook.
Yep.
The flow was still up.
Well, moving to the upside. Really not a great reason to sell this market at all. We can see it on 30-minute holding that 200, that 20 moving average, which trending markets tend to do. Uh, when do we hit 3,500 in gold? This does not look like a rally that's stopping anytime soon. Um, this is a
Wow.
buy the dip market for sure, until that pattern changes. Uh, Someone said, design it says, when you show the charts like this, it looks so easy to just buy. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why we do this all the time, where we can talk about the markets not moving. I think what's really important, when you do review or pre-market prep or anything like that, is to probably write some of this stuff down, because it's easy to forget and then just zoom in and say, oh, well, I'm going to go short here. I'm going to go long here. If you can kind of write out a thesis for the day, and then see whether or not the market agrees with that thesis, it might not, right? But these markets, gold has been in an uptrend for, I don't know how long. And I think most of the time we look at it, coach, we may talk about the potential for a necessary pullback on a higher time frame where we've just gotten a little bit extended, like we saw on the daily, right? On the daily, when we got a little bit too far away from this 20 moving average, we did start to talk about, hey, this is maybe getting a little extended. We hit that 3,200 and we said, okay, it would make sense for what gold has done start pulling back. But once that pullback is satisfied, there is, to me, and I think you would agree, coach, there's no reason to get into a short in gold at this point. Not a great one. I don't see one.
Yeah, and that's the daily,
Mhm.
and also, yeah, it looks easy. That's why you hear saying have a trading plan.
Yep.
I say it all the time. Coach Jay and I are both basketball coaches for a long time. An athlete has a routine, all great, and you have to.
Hmm.
So someone asked in there, I've been, Coach Paul, you've been spot on. What is your scouting process?
Yeah.
It's my routine. One of the things, yeah, my experience. I've been experienced in many different markets. It's where I started from. I didn't specialize in one place. I started off as a board marker, and then I worked my way up to being one of the best board markers. So whatever market was busy, I was there. So it's in my DNA. Then when started trading at the Mid America, which was the original mini contracts, I just went to wherever was busy. That was a routine. I want to be in a place where it's busy or loud, for my case on the trading floor, which is another word, volume. When there's volume, there's opportunity. So my routine is I go through 25 markets.
See which
And
ones
not
are.
all of them, you know, I'm guilty sometimes of missing something. Not guilty, but I miss things. I had to get over missing moves. But I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the DNA of an imbalance, I'll call it. Read and react. And part of our Coach Jay and our program is a routine.
Yep.
Routines can get boring too.
They can.
But
They
what do they
definitely can.
bring?
Results.
Discipline, right? Results, discipline, understanding what has a higher probability. So that's all ingrained in our process, and that's why we do this, is to help you
Awesome
get a
stuff. Thank you for
routine into a plan.
that, coach. All right. We got one more market, crude oil. Out of the big four. Didn't really do much today, kind of an inside day in crude, a kind of quiet day. On the daily, though, I am looking at the same candle that we had on Wednesday in the equities, 50% of that holding. That's right around $59. Looking for crude to potentially trade back up to the upper end of this imbalance, maybe to hold up here and then trade back up to 70. If those are the lows, we know crude. did trade lows of the most, last couple of years recently. But we got a pretty strong reaction there, found some buyers. Let's see if they push this back up into the range that crude likes to trade in. Anything you got on crude oil, coach?
Same as you. Nothing. It's finding some balance. There was nice buying volume off the lows that had urgency. It's held. We're above the 200 here. I still think Monday is going to tell the tale for most of these markets. But definitely, I don't want to sell crude down here. It's extended bottom of the range that we've been in. I haven't traded it all week, but still was a great move to the downside. But it got bought up, so neutral in the crude world.
Neutral in crude. All right. We got a question from Shubham that I'll answer here. Coach Jay, today I was talking to someone who earns well. Today I was talking to someone who earns well, and I realized they see trading as completely unsafe, a gambler's game. I wasn't pleased with that view, but I didn't want to drag the conversation because they're a good person with different beliefs. I've noticed this often, even with family. Many times, investors themselves look at traders as gamblers. Uh, Shubham, that's a good point, and I think it's good to be objective, right? And because you sit in the seat of a trader, sometimes it's a default response to defend the seat that you sit in. But what I would ask is there validity to that argument? And if there is, how do you ensure that you're not in the frame that they're putting a trader in? Hopefully that makes sense. Because I do think there's validity to it. Um, Trading is probably all investment, all financial investment is gambling, right? Whether it be real estate, long-term investing, buying and holding, it's all gamble, right? We saw this recently this week. I heard some people locking in, unfortunately, locking in losses on their retirement accounts. Is that a gamble? It's supposed to be the safe investment, but when the markets sell off 30%, people get scared. So is that gambling or is that investing just because I don't look at it as often, right? So there's risk in everything involved, whether you're short term or long term. I think the reason trading gets the connotation of gambling is because of how active traders are and uh, how much more prone a shorter term trader is at continuing to throw money at the markets, right? So I do think there's validity in it, and day trading can be the closest to gambling that we can get from this. Well, what I'll say is, again, what do you do to not sit in that frame that the person puts it in? You establish your risk, right? You manage your risk, you manage your accounts. The things that we've been talking about here, where it's, hey, you know what? Maybe you don't see the vision the same way, but if the results speak, then who are they to say anything, right? If the results don't speak, then that's a different conversation. Uh, but I wouldn't let if you truly know that you're not gambling in doing this, I wouldn't let that outside opinion affect you because it could subconsciously get into your decision making and where you're trying to prove that you're not a gambler. Um, and that's why it's extremely important to manage your risk uh, because someone can have an opinion, but I could have an opinion that, you know, buying a multifamily home and renting it out is gambling in New York because of squatters' rights, right? You could lose your house to somebody who doesn't pay you rent. So it's all about perspective. It's all about your approach and all about your risk management. What would you say to that, coach?
Um, you hit it. Yeah, it can be gambling. What's the difference between gambling and speculation?
Risk management.
Gambling is trying to beat the odds with no plan, just on pure luck. Speculation. All businesses are speculative. You can tell them that it is. So what's the difference? Measured risk, a plan. If you're entering a business, and you want to borrow money from the bank, they're going to ask you, let's see your business plan. And they're going to break it down. And there has to be some monetary controls, a process, what your expectations are, how you're going to execute that business plan through time. Now that is speculation. Gambling is, I'm just going to open up this business. I got a ton of money, and if I open it, they'll all come. That's gambling. So the key point is, someone asks you, yeah, it can be. That's why, you hear it ad infinitum from me. Develop your plan. Be business-like.
Coach, we're basketball coaches. I could say that it's gambling to for high school kids to not focus on their education and solely focus on getting a basketball scholarship. That's a gamble, right? So we
That
we have to we have to measure the potential outcome of our actions, and then go from there, right? Do you put do I think that people should be looking at their day trading accounts as retirement accounts? No, right? Because there is a lot more risk, right, to it. But um, I was having a conversation with somebody recently and was saying, I do think day traders should take their money and put it somewhere else, right? And maybe not even something that's involved in the markets. Maybe just put it in a bank account where you don't touch it, right? A savings account where high yield savings account where you don't touch it, because of the high potential volatility in day trading. But uh, I think we got some people in the chat saying life is a gamble. So,
yeah. Well, life's a gamble if you don't have a plan.
right.
I can't say that enough. It took me, I won't embarrass myself, how many years to figure that I didn't really have a plan. I had a feeling, you know. So yeah, it's a great question. Understand that though. Without measured risk, you're gambling. Period.
Percent. It's Friday. All right. Any other markets you want to talk about, Coach? If not, it's Friday. We can get out of here a little bit early. Trader Mike, I hope you saw my answer to your question. Flat VWAP means range bound market. Any other markets we want to discuss, Coach? If not, we're gonna get out of here a little bit early.
I'll just one more. Let's look at we talked about the Swiss franc yesterday. Let's look at the opening last night.
Cannot keep getting away with this, Coach.
Euro currency was even better. That's when someone asks, that's my process. That's what I'm looking for. If I don't find it, I'd go find it.
Yep. And what you're looking for, Coach, if I can summarize it real quick, this market is trending on a higher time frame. On the daily, we got above the 200 moving average. So now you're going to go down to the 30-minute and see, again, we're above that 200 moving average. Looking at last night's open, because we're day traders, I know you might be swing trading this as well, but for the traders that aren't swing trading this, we got higher time frame, medium time frame saying uptrend, right? So now when the market is open, does it present an opportunity for me to continue and join into that trend? Framing out that 30-minute opening range, VWAP leaves the range to the upside. About a 2 ATR risk would put you at 700, right around here. I don't know what the tick value is on the Swiss franc, but you got about a 3-to-1, depending on where you exited this trade, Coach. And it can be that simple.
You know what's great is a 2-to-1 risk reward every day. If you know that process, think about it. If it works 50% of the time and you get 2-to-1, that's a good business plan.
Yep.
You will get funded. But if 2-to-1 is you're taking too much on the one that you can't afford it, that's when you have to determine size. So I mean, it can be really simple.
Yeah, can be extremely simple. If you haven't done so already, hit that thumbs up button. Like we said, it's been a long week, so we're gonna give everybody back some time. We normally go for about another half an hour or so, but it has been a week. Do want to make no, Shubham, no, don't worry about that at all. No, you didn't. We planned on cutting the show short before we even got on here, right? It's been a long week. I think a lot of us have been at these charts all week, and for good reason, right? There's been a ton of opportunity, but I think now is the time to decompress a little bit, right? We'll be back on Sunday, uh, doing the market kickoff. Uh, watch the market kickoff with Hogan and I last week. I think I said this last Friday as well. The markets kind of did what we talked about. So nothing we say here is a investment advice, trading advice for educational purposes only. Hopefully, what we're doing is helping you as a trader in your journey. Uh, but emails for the VIP promo are probably going to go out next week. Don't hold me to that, but it's probably going to go out next week. Coach, you got plans for the weekend?
Rest and recover.
Rest, cover.
Yeah, just I don't really have big plans. I'm going to maybe get to the driving range.
Nice.
I do have 2 basketball games I have to coach, so
There you go. There you go. Well, whatever you guys have planned for the weekend, enjoy it. If you have to review your charts, do it for an hour or two. Don't spend too much time on it. The markets are going to constantly give us opportunity to work on our trading plan. So, next week we'll present opportunities. Just be prepared to execute on them, and we will talk to you all next week. Thanks, Coach.
have a good weekend, everybody. Thank you,
weekend.
Coach.
Bye.
Bye.